Wake up, wake up, snap out of it, snap out of it.
Most people consider Alex Jones to just be a crazy conspiracy theorist who rants on his show for hours to a mass of brain-rotted fans. But what if, out of all of his 28 years of investigative journalism, he actually got something completely right?
Atrazine.
In a surprise move, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency said it will review a popular herbicide ahead of schedule.
You've got to get moving. You've got to get aggressive. You've got to get mad.
In October of 2015, Alex Jones started his show how he usually does.
Everything they give us is to hurt us. Shot claim, world's on the brink of 50-year ice age. Scientists claim zapping brains with magnets can treat belief in God. Yeah, so can giving somebody a lobotomy. Did parallel universe open up? 100-sea floating city filmed in skies above China. That's mainstream news. Was videotaped. And it's clearly a giant 500-yard tall, wide hologram.
But what separated this episode from all of his others was his passionate speech on something that sounds like a complete joke.
Now there it is, the gay bomb. Look it up for yourself. I mean, this is what do you think tap water is? It's a gay bomb, baby. And I'm not saying people didn't naturally have homosexual feelings. I'm not even getting into it, quite frankly. I mean, give me a break. You think I am like, shocked by it, so I'm up here bashing it because I don't like gay people? I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay. Do you understand that? Serious crap. I'm sick of being social engineered. It's not funny.
Most people, including myself initially, took this statement as comedy. In this entire show, he doesn't provide any evidence or further clarification, but this is actually something that Alex Jones has been talking about for years. I did some digging and I found a broadcast from 2008 of him talking about the exact same thing.
The frogs, the male frogs, think they're females now. That's not, when I say that about a frog, I'm not bashing the gay frog, but the chemical got in the water. The stuff they're putting in the water and everything is not working on me, man. It's not working on me.
The herbicide that Alex Jones mentions in his 2008 broadcast is atrazine, which is a functional weed killer mostly used by farmers in the US, Australia, Canada, and China. It prevents broadleaf weeds in crops and is also used in landscaping such as on golf courses, and due to this use, atrazine ends up in our drinking water. It has been completely banned in the EU and UK since the early 2000s, although due to previous and continuous use by these nations, traces are still found in most groundwater and water supplies worldwide. Many studies have exposed atrazine to be a human endocrine disruptor. It can cause men to have reduced testosterone, resulting in a reduction of sperm count and quality, and even leading to infertility. In women, it creates longer menstrual cycles, and also disrupts fertility that can result in fetal developmental issues. Other studies have also linked it to causing certain cancers in both men and women. But what does any of this have to do with gay frogs? Well, the effect that atrazine has on wildlife is also concerning. During the late 1990s and early 2000s, Tyrone Hayes, a biologist and Berkeley professor, was hired by a consulting firm called EcoRisk on behalf of atrazine manufacturers Syngenta and Novartis. His job was to lead a study on potential effects of extremely low doses of atrazine on wildlife. All of the tests were conducted on frogs as they're present in the environment where atrazine has been found. After Hayes administered these extremely low doses of atrazine to these frogs, his results were alarming.
Hayes is testing the effects of chemicals like atrazine, a common herbicide.
We have a whole family of animals where we've eliminated the female chromosome.
Specimen 01.
These animals that we know are genetic males have been exposed to atrazine for their entire life. And many of these genetic males now are turning into females. You can see he's got eggs that kind of look like they're in a sack. These are actually yolked eggs ready to be laid. You can get genetic bottlenecking, which can cause crashes. And quite frankly, if you're a genetic male, it'd be nice if you're developed as a genetic male. And now we have a chemical very common in the environment that's effectively sex reversing animals.
The studies revealed chemical castration, demasculization, increased estrogen production, testicular deformities, sex reversal, and hermaphroditism. And I just want to emphasize how small of a dose these frogs were given. Only 1 part per billion of atrazine, or even 0.1 part per billion. Even nowadays during peak spraying periods, there have been reports of over 30 parts per billion of atrazine detected in rivers and lakes near farms across America, and frog populations are declining in these areas as a direct result of this. So was Alex Jones right in saying that there are chemicals in the drinking water that are turning frogs gay? Well, not exactly. Male frogs aren't directly mating with other male frogs, but instead these male frogs are becoming biological female frogs and then mating with the male frogs. Yeah, that's pretty gay actually. In most places worldwide, the legal limit of atrazine in drinking water is 1 part per billion. On average, in places like Brazil, China, and Pacific Asia, levels are detected around 0.5 parts per billion, and the US at 0.79 parts per billion. And you might think that this is okay as it's below the legal limit, but as we know from Hayes' study, it only takes 0.1 part per billion of atrazine to have these negative effects on frogs. Back when Hayes was working for Syngenta, him and his team decided to ask Syngenta to publish their findings. Syngenta responded by taking away his funding and trying to waste his time.
And then it seemed like they were trying to slow down the progress, and because with each set of samples that we analyzed, the problem got worse. It didn't get better. And then eventually, then they asked me to manipulate the data in ways that were inappropriate. To try to make it go away, and at that point I quit. At that point I left the contract.
Hayes' decision to resign came soon after Syngenta offered him $2 million to stay and conduct his research in private. This would make his studies corporate property, which would block the release of them to the public. After resigning, Hayes obtained independent funding to replicate and expand his initial research. He conducted multiple studies in his lab and in the environments where frogs are naturally exposed to atrazine. These studies ended up being published in 2 of the world's most prestigious scientific journals. All of Syngenta's tactics to discredit and destroy Hayes' career crumbled apart entirely. So for damage control, Syngenta funded many biased studies that supposedly prove Hayes' results wrong. At the same time Syngenta were doing this, a mass of studies from all over the world were able to replicate Hayes' results, but Syngenta had another trick up their sleeve. In 2002, when the Environmental Protection Agency finally stepped in and said that they would investigate atrazine, Syngenta, the largest atrazine manufacturer, came out with a set of good laboratory guidelines in collaboration with the EPA. This essentially made it so that the EPA would only accept studies from Syngenta. And in 2007, the EPA concluded that atrazine posed no risk to amphibians, relying on a single study funded by Syngenta. In 2012, Syngenta settled a lawsuit on behalf of communities in Illinois affected by atrazine-contaminated drinking water. The settlement came to over $105 million. During the discovery period of this lawsuit, many of Syngenta's internal documents were released to the public.
So we find out, and this is happening to you, so you're aware of it, where it becomes more broadly known is in a lawsuit, a class action suit against Syngenta in 2012. Which they eventually settle for over $100 million with communities in Illinois over water. But in that process, in the discovery process, the notes of Syngenta and their records become public, and we find there that they, that they had written down and had records. And I was going through some of that, and it says they made a list of ways to discredit you, and those lists included have your work audited, ask journals to retract your articles. And this is all their language. Set trap to entice him to sue.
That's my favorite. Set a trap. Who writes that down, right? Set a trap.
Set a trap.
It's like Bugs Bunny Road Warriors.
Yeah, no one will ever read this. Investigate your funding and even investigate your wife.
There was many notes on potential ways of how they could discredit Hayes. These potential plans involved performing a fake psychological evaluation of Hayes, so that they could then paint him as a paranoid, narcissistic schizophrenic. They also discussed tapping his phone calls, investigating his wife, purchasing the search term of his name, Tyrone Hayes, so instead of seeing his research, you'd just see the Syngenta website, giving him unlimited funding to keep his research private, and setting a trap of some kind. Syngenta also hired a detective agency to investigate scientists on the board of advisories for the EPA. They also have tried to find some dirt on a judge and hired over 100 experts to appear as independent supporters for the company without disclosing ties to the company. They also kept paying these experts to appear in media to give good press on the safety of atrazine. This included professors such as Don Corsi, who was paid $500 an hour to give positive statements about the safety of atrazine.
So in closing, I just want to say that the last thing we need right now is something that will cause more people to lose their jobs in the United States economy, and a not well thought out ban on atrazine would be exactly one of those.
A PR company called the White House Authors Group also received $1.6 million from Syngenta to write pieces in support of atrazine. They also had plans to pay critics to appear at Tyrone Hayes' speaking events to disrupt and question his science. It took until 2016, 14 years after Hayes released his research, for the EPA to finally recognize it as valid. The EPA set stricter exposure limits, but still decided not to ban the chemical due to its economic benefit to the US. After looking at frogs, Dr. Tyrone Hayes decided to look at humans, as we actually share similar endocrine systems to frogs. Frogs have a pituitary gland, a thyroid, adrenal glands, and the molecular structure of their hormones and hormone receptors are almost identical to humans.
Men who have atrazine in their urine have a low sperm count and can't get their wives pregnant. And by the way, this is the same amount of atrazine, 0.1 parts per billion, that we were using to chemically castrate and feminize our frogs. There's studies showing that there's correlations between atrazine in their drinking water and breast cancer incidence in women in Kentucky. It's just a correlation, but we already know that if you get pregnant during peak atrazine contamination, you're more likely to have babies with birth defects, including malformed genitals in the male babies.
These studies are obviously devastating, especially when you link it to other Brazilian studies that show an increase of males being born with micropenises. So we now know for certain that atrazine contamination is a real issue that's still affecting us and our environment to this day, and that these corrupt companies, agencies and individuals were actively trying to cover it up. But is this really an intentional act done by elite figures to make us weaker and more divisive, as Alex Jones claims? Or is this more of a byproduct of humanity coming up with duct tape solutions that eventually result in bigger problems? This video was heavily inspired by OKI's Weird Stories, who made a more in-depth video on the subject. So if you enjoyed this video and you want to learn more, go ahead and check out his channel and videos. Also, shout out to Tyrone Hayes for bringing light to all of this. This has been ōOG, thank you for watching, and good night.